Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to continue the Buckskin Scabbard for a black powder rifle. And on the last video I cut the fringe and I cut the deer hide or the buckskin for the scabbard. So on this video I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to try. I've never used this before, but I've had some suggestions some hemming tape to get my hem held while I stitch it, and then I'll show you how I'm going to put the fringe in before I stitch all that together. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so I've got some of this already completed, and what's nice I found working with this buckskin is that it's very forgiving as far as being able to work around corners and rounded areas that otherwise, if it was thick and not as pliable, that would make it difficult to go around these circular edges. So what I've done is I've used some of this peel and stick fabric fuse, and it's a permanent adhesive. I've never used it before. I've had suggestions from other people to try this. In the past, what I normally do is use contact cement and fold that over, but the problem with that is especially with something as big as this, is that would take forever to do that. So I thought I'd go ahead and try this. I found this at Hobby Lobby in the fabric department, and it is super sticky. It's two-sided, and what I've done, I've done one side and the actual cover part for the buttstock. Now I'm coming down the other side, and what I've done is I took this and cut it vertically. So I didn't. This is 5/8 inch wide. So what I did was I took my shears and I just split it up the middle vertically. Now you got to be very careful because this stuff is super sticky. So you got to be careful where you lay it down. Then once I did that, and I do it in strips about 6 inches long, and then I place that on the inside of my buckskin, and then I put another strip down and just keep continuing that down. So I'm down here toward the end, and I'll show you how I've been doing that, and that'll give you a good idea where I'm at right now. Before we go ahead and fold that, I'll show you how I fold that hem over. So I'm taking about a 6 inch, and I'm not measuring or anything, I'm just guessing. And then I'm taking it adhesive side down. I've tried it both ways, adhesive side down, adhesive side up, and it seems to work better for me if I do it adhesive side down. Either way, sometimes it'll stick to your scissors, which is fine. It'll pop right off, but because it's just the edge. Then I'll take the sticky side and put it down to the buckskin. And I am applying this to the suede side. And then the more you press on that, the deeper that gets down into that fabric or the leather in this case, and the more that's going to adhere to that. So it says the more you push on it, the more that it's going to adhere. So my thought process at this point is, and I have no idea because I haven't used it yet, but I know some people have told me that they were using it to hold their hem while they were stitching. So it just makes it that much stronger. But I don't know what that adhesive is going to do to my needle and my thread when I start stitching this. So that may end up being something totally different I have to deal with, but we'll find out here shortly. So I'll put another piece on. Now I'm getting ready to go around this sharp round end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off so it doesn't run off the end, and then I'll turn it. Put another piece on, and I'll just keep cutting that as I need so that I can get around. Now you'll see when I start to fold this over, because this buckskin's so pliable and it stretches a little bit if you need to, it makes it easier to go around corners. So let's get back to this end of this that I did on the hem. So for my fringe, I'll do the same thing. I'll go about 6 inches or so, and the reason I do that is so that I don't have so much to cut vertically. I haven't used this before, so I wasn't sure what size to get, and they were very limited on the width, so I just went ahead and got the 5/8, and then once I started looking into it, how I was going to do this, I knew I was going to have to split it vertically, but it hasn't really been that big a problem. The only problem is the way it wants to stick to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on top of my actual folded over hem on the inside, just like so. And I'll do that down this hem and this seam till I get down to the end, where the end of the muzzle would go. So you can see it wants to stick to your scissors, the blade on your scissors, which is really not that big a deal. It pops right off of there, and it does kind of keep it from getting on anything. So I can go ahead and take the next one, and I'll run it down right on top of that hem. Now again, I haven't stitched anything yet, so I don't know how that's going to work exactly. But we will find out shortly. I'll take another one, and then I just keep repeating this process till I get to the end down there. Now there's one that's stuck to my scissors, I haven't had that happen yet, where it actually pulled the adhesive off the back. That one did. So I won't use that one. I'll set it aside with my scrap, if I can get it off my finger. See, that's the thing, it's so sticky, it's so tacky. If it does once get stuck on your finger, I've found that it is not easy to remove. Kind of like bubble gum, you gotta remove it with the tape itself, and then it comes off. But once it does stick to your skin, it really wants to adhere, so you want to be really aware of that. And it's okay unless the adhesive starts coming off of this waxed backing, then that's when it becomes a problem. Just like that right there. Now it's wanting to stick to my skin and not the backing. So try to get that on there as quickly as possible. Here's the next piece. Again, it seems like if you don't let it stay in contact with your skin, if it just comes in contact with it and you keep moving it so it doesn't stay there very long, no problem. But boy, if it stays on your skin for just a second, then it's good and stuck. Alright, so we're going to go back down. I'm going to stop there because I don't know how far down exactly I need to go. So I'm going to come back, take my fringe, and I'm going to lay it down suede side down. So I'm going to take the waxed part of that off, and I'm going to start here on the end, and I want to put that fringe even with the folded hem, and maybe you'll be able to see it a little bit better as I come down. So I'll take the next piece off, and I'll just work my way down. A little at a time. I've found that using this, definitely want to go slow and really pay attention to what you're doing, and then make sure you push it down good so you have good contact. Peel the next one off and just keep working my way down here. And then the same on the scissors. You notice as I cut, when it wants to stick to the blade, I try to get it off there as quickly as possible. Because it seems like they say the harder you push, the more it will adhere, but it also seems like the longer it's adhered, the stronger it gets. I don't want to get in a super big hurry. I don't want to do any shortcuts. Everything has. And then the same on the scissors. You notice as I cut, when it wants to stick to the blade, I try to get it off there as quickly as possible. Because it seems like they say the harder you push, the more it will adhere, but it also seems like the longer it's adhered, the stronger it gets. I don't want to get in a super big hurry. I don't want to do any shortcuts. Alright, so I've got my machine set up, and I've just got, it's just a regular fabric machine, nothing special. I've got some brown thread in there because I want to have a little bit of, there's a test run I did. I want to have a little bit of contrast to that instead of trying to hide the stitch. So this is just through one hem and one thickness of tape. So I've got me a piece of painter's tape here as a guide to keep my stitch the same distance from the edge. And I do have a reverse here, so I am going to go forward, reverse, lock all that in, and then I'll go forward again. It seems to be doing okay. Can't really tell yet. It looks pretty good there. So I'll continue. The hard thing is to make sure that you keep that the same distance from the edge. Once I get that out there, I can show you a little bit what I mean by that. Is to keep the distance of the thread from the edge of the hem the same, or as close to the same as you possibly can. That's why I put the blue painter's tape on there to give me a guide. Now it gets a little tougher as you go around the round part. I just keep rotating that so I can get around the entire piece and get back here to the end. have to guide that in here from the back. As I come around and finish this. Now when I get down to the end, I'll do the same thing as I did on the front. I'll back it up about 5 stitches, then go forward about 5 more stitches, and that'll lock that in. Pull that out a little bit, cut my thread, and then what I'll do is on my end threads that I just cut, they're just barely sticking out. And I'll burn those so that they won't have a straight edge end on them. So that part, the flap is hemmed. And you can see the brown thread, but I kept that guide, that tape guide on there, and you can see it's nice and consistent all the way around. I didn't really notice that the tape, the bonding tape, really was that much of a problem. And I'm not sure how this is going to react, how this machine will react. And I'm going to have to, this is going to be difficult because I'm going to have to really watch the fringe. I can't let any of that fringe get underneath there, or it's going to end up getting stitched. And we definitely don't want that. So I'm going to tuck that last little piece in there, and I'm going to start right on this point of the scabbard. And we're going to find out real quick if this is going to be able to handle this, if this machine will be able to handle this or not. Again, I'll back that up, lock that in. And the tedious part's going to be getting it started. I think once I get it started, if I can get it rolling, I'll be alright. Again, it's going through that many thicknesses of that glue and leather also. So So once I can get that started, and I believe I have, if I can keep all that fringe out of the way and not stitch any of that, we may be successful here. Alright, so the sewing machine that I was using, epic fail. It would not go through 4 thicknesses of this buckskin and the tape, the adhesive on the tape. So I ended up using a stitching awl, and I'm down to the last stitches that I put in, and I'll show you those here in just a second. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to terminate this at the end. I'm going to cut that off all, on both sides. And then I'll take a lighter, melt that, so I terminate both sides. And then I can show you the finished stitching that I ended up using a stitching awl. Now I did use the sewing machine, as you saw earlier, on the single hem on the flap for the buttstock. That worked fine. But when I got to 4 thicknesses of the leather, and the needle just did not want to go through that adhesive on that tape. So I ended up using a stitching awl. It worked fine. It took a while, but I ended up with a real nice stitch all the way down. And there's definitely, that's heavier thread, so it's not going to ever come out. The leather will actually wear before that stitch comes out of there. So now what we'll do is we'll move on to the buttstock closure that I'm going to put in here. Alright, so now I'm ready to work on the closure here for the gun stock, the buttstock cover on the end. So what I've come up with is I've got these synthetic bear claws, and I just took one, drilled 2 small holes in it to make it like a button, and I cut out 4 round leather discs. This is about I'd say probably number 10 leather, and it's just veg tan, nice and thick, stiff. I cut 4 of those out, and then I'm going to use, at least this is my idea, is to use some leather, brown leather lace to give it a little bit of contrast on the buckskin. So let's see how this turns out. What I did was I put my synthetic waxed sinew on my needle, pulled one side through, took my needle off, brought it back around and put it on the other side, so that I'll actually have two ends when I'm done stitching this on here, so I can tie that off, and then I can melt that, and I'll have a nice secure bear claw on there, or button, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm going to do is, that is waxed, so as I put it through front to back, back to front, I'll just keep snugging that down, and it should stay pretty snug. Now I'm getting to the point where the needle's getting a little tight to go through because of the thickness of the sinew. So I'm going to see if I can get one more pass through here. And that's about it. That's about all I'm going to get. So I'll snug that up good. Take my scissors, cut that off. I'll go ahead and tie it off on the back side. You'll never see it. Once I tie that off, I'll trim it, and then I'll melt that waxed sinew, and that'll also help lock that in. So that's what the back looks like. And here's the bear claw button. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to figure out a way that I am going to adhere these discs, because I'm going to sandwich the buckskin between them. And what that's going to do is that's going to give that some stability there where those are going to attach, because this buckskin is so light and pliable. So what I need to do first is move these out of the way and get the rifle up here and get it in the scabbard, and let's see where that needs to attach. So let me grab the rifle real quick. Alright, so let me slide this on the rifle, and again it's not going to have these scope mounts on it. They'll be removed. The owner's going to do that. So we'll put that inside there like so. Move this stuff out of the way here. Slide this down. And then there's the buttstock. And here's the cover. So what I want to do is I want to pull this down to see, and this doesn't have to be super tight, but this will give a little bit. So, and then all I need to do is just make a mark where I want these. So I'm going to take a look. I want to put it on there about like so. Leave a little, about a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch space there. So what I could do is I can mark that. just put a little dot on there so I know exactly where that's going to go. And it's right in the center. Then, where do I want to put the ones on the back? Once I get this one attached, then that's going to give me a good idea of where to put the one on this side. So I'll go ahead and do this one first. And I think what I'll do is I'll take this rifle back out. I don't want to scratch or damage it in any way. So I'll pull the scabbard back off. Then I'll see where I'm going to place this. I'll take my poly board. I've got my hole punch that I need that is going to match the size of my lace. So my lace will go through the holes. And I want to see, I'm going to attach this with just a knot. I think that'll make it a little more rustic looking. We'll see how that looks. So I'm going to go through the leather, the 10-ounce leather, and the buckskin. On both sides. Then what I can do is I can take that disc and I can place it on top of my other disc, and I can mark that. So this will be the back. Now I know where to put my holes for the back. And those will match up. So that will go all the way through to the back side, and I've sandwiched that buckskin with those two 10-ounce veg tan disc. And then what I'm going to do to attach that, alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this bear claw. Basically I made a little button out of it by drilling 2 holes in it. Match those holes up through this where I had it stitched on before just to one side, and then attaching these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this all the way through the bear claw, the top veg tan disc, through the buckskin, and through the back disc. Pull my needle off. So I have my waxed sinew hanging out here on the back, Then I'll put my needle back on this other end, and I'll do it just like I did the first time, except I'm going to go all the way through all the thicknesses, and then it'll all be secured together. I should have done that the first time, but hindsight's 20/20, as they say. So I just cut my sinew off and go with a different idea here. So I'm still pulling that through, still going back through the back hole on the other side, and until I get these matched up with one good stitch here. Might be a little, there we go. So now that I've got that through both sides, now if I pull that tight, that'll line those holes up real good. And then I'll stitch through the other side again, pull that through, and again, that's being that waxed sinew, I can pull on that pretty good and make it nice and tight. Now you can see my holes are lining up really good. Excuse me. What that's going to do is lock all that, those three, actually 4 pieces, lock all 4 pieces together. The bear claw, the 2 pieces of 10-ounce leather, or the veg tan, and sandwiched between the buckskin. So I'll show you what that's going to look like here. As soon as I pull this last thread through, pull my needle off, tighten both sides of the thread real good, lock it in with a knot, and I want my knot to be pretty nice since you could possibly see it. Just tie a nice square knot, cut that off, leaving about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. Take my lighter, and flatten those threads out. So now that's what I've got. So it's locked on there all the way through to the back. And I've got my holes here through all 3 pieces of leather to put my lace. So now from the back side, I can lace this through like so. So it'll look like that, and then I can actually tie that off, and that'll close this part. So now that I've got that on there, I got to test fit again to see where I put my 2 pieces of leather on the other side, and I'll have to stitch those on there also to secure them. So I'll do it the same way. I'll sandwich those in there. So I'll put the sleeve back on. It is so soft. And I'll pull this down. markings here. I don't know whether he's going to take that sling off or not. Probably, I would assume. So it won't be in the way. So that would fold over like so, over the buttstock. So what I need to do is just measure and put a reference mark on the buckskin on this side. It's going to hold the other two discs. Now we've got our reference mark. We can take this off, set the gun aside again, and then continue with our closure now that we have our markings we need. So I can take my poly board, put it under here, and I'll do the same with these so I know exactly where to punch those. I'll do the same markings using this. So I'll just line those up, hold on to them so they stay aligned. Do both sides, or both pieces, should say. Now those are ready. And what I'll do is let's go ahead and I don't really want to beat on top of that buckskin, so let's move this over here. And what I can do is go ahead, put this on top of those marks, since I've already got one set of holes, and just lightly tap. And what that does is it tells me exactly where to punch those holes through so that it matches perfectly. And then we'll do the same for the buckskin. Alright, so as you pull those through that closure, now I can tie that off. That's nice and tight. That's not going anywhere. It's going to secure the butt of the gun in the sleeve, in the scabbard. There it is, complete. And there's the closure. So it turned out really good. So other than the disappointment of the sewing machine, again it's a standard sewing machine, it's nothing special. Other than that, and having to stitch this with a stitching awl, other than the basic 2 thicknesses of the hem I put in, other than that, the project went well. I I had just the right amount of material. Um, I really like the way the closure ended up, and I probably will add some beads to this just to give it a little bit of uh, decoration. So we'll see. Uh, I appreciate you coming along. I appreciate you following, watching the videos. If you haven't seen any of the other videos, go back and check them out. I think we're over 200 now. So there's several of them up to take a look at. They're all different projects. So I appreciate you watching. Come back next week, check out the next video. If you haven't yet, smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate that. And it doesn't cost you anything, it's free. So please, as I always say, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.